Today on the Quarter Hour podcast, why TV needs to look to radio to replace its biggest stars. Hi and welcome to the Quarter Hour podcast. I'm your host Liam Renton, and today we're asking the question why TV needs to look to radio to find its next big stars. With Kyle Stefanovic now gone from his role on the Today Show, who are the front runners to replace him, and why the Today Show needs to look at some major radio talent as potential replacements. To discuss this, from McKnight Tonight TV host and TV and radio producer Rob McKnight joins us. Rob, welcome to the Quarter Hour podcast.
It is fantastic to be invited back. I wasn't sure that I would be, but I have been, so I'm thrilled.
Mate, you've had a great gig over the years. You were EP of some of the highest profile TV shows on Australian TV. You've cast shows before, so why doesn't TV look more to radio to fill those hosting roles?
It's an interesting question because as someone who went from TV to radio, I ended up being a executive producer at 4BC and did some fill-in presenting work while I was there. I do an hour with John Stanley every week. And I have fallen in love with radio. There is something so intimate, just being able to connect with the audience in a way that you can't as a presenter in TV. Now, I'm not saying TV doesn't connect with the audience, but what I'm saying is that when you are in a studio talking to the cameras and the floor crew and everything like that, you're not connect with the audience like you do with talkback, especially when people are calling in and giving you instant reaction to the things you've said. And there is just such a beauty in that. Now, what you often find when a television presenter goes to radio, they can't open up in that personal way. Even the ones we think open up in a personal way in breakfast television, they do to a point, but they're not reliant on continuously telling their own personal stories like you are in radio. In radio, you're looking for talkers. Or if you're doing talkback, you're looking at you're sharing your opinion on every topical issue. Whereas in television, there's a little bit of that when you're doing a hot topic segment or whatever. But essentially, you're presenting information, and the two are very distinct. And you look at Karl when he first went and did 2GB. I don't think he was as open to the process as he is now. And this is why he's finding success now, because he's letting his guard down. When he first went to 2GB, my memory of that is that it wasn't overly a triumph, but he certainly found his voice now. And I think that is the hard problem for TV people. Now, when you go the other way, radio people, they share themselves, they give over themselves, and so they can transition to television much better, I think.
I guess when you have hired radio people, that they always seem to pop up on those talking head type segments. What have you seen radio people bring to a TV show where it is a different medium and they're not used to being in front of a camera? So what do they bring skill set wise to a television show?
It is that personality driven thing. It is being able to find those outs when you need them. We need to get out here and ending on a moment. Radio people know how to do that, whereas TV people, it's a little bit more of an art form being able to do that. And I think it is just that ability to connect with an audience, even though you're not getting that feedback from the phone calls that I talked about, you still understand how potential viewers are reacting because you've experienced it with that instant feedback from the radio. So it's really personality driven.
I guess it's those flying hours, isn't it? Radio people seem to do more on-air hours. What are the strengths that countless hours of radio gives to a TV show, do you think?
Well, it's that ability to talk underwater, right? You can go right up. Right, this week on Media McKnight, I'm running a clip from Sky News, okay, at the start of the show. I sometimes like to find quirky little things to start with. And I was watching Sky News, and the presenter came on and said, I'm just going to do something in the industry we call padding because we're hoping to get our next guest on, but we didn't have time. And he explained the whole thing. A radio presenter would have completely ignored that and just pulled out one of their talkers, something that had happened. Like Sky News talks about topics all day, right? And so he could have easily sat there and said, Albanese is really in trouble with this issue with the Kylie Minogue thing. But does he need to apologise for such a thing? And he could have talked about anything. It was only about 45 seconds, but he didn't. He literally was telling the audience what was going on. And while that can be fun for, if you're in an FM show, you might make a big deal of it. We tried to be hip and cool. We tried to be polished, but we stuffed it up again. Whereas this was literally not knowing where to go or what to do while this interview transition happened. So what had happened is one interview had finished. They were trying to get out quickly. The next one was coming in and miking up. It was really messy. But a radio person would have been able to handle that in two very distinct ways. Just feel over it as though nothing was happening, or make a big deal of it and have fun with it.
I love that example. Well, let's look at some previous attempts where radio talent has succeeded on TV. For me, the first one that comes to mind is The Panel, back in the 90s, which was the original Triple M Melbourne breakfast show. We whacked them on late night TV. They set the mould for radio talking heads, don't you think?
They really did. And it's funny when you think of The Panel, because it really was like a radio show just without the mics, because they were sitting around and just talking to each other. But it was fantastic. And, you know, you look at what we did with Studio 10. Now, Studio 10 was full of TV people, but they were probably the closest, I would think, to people who could transition to radio, because they got a rhythm of, you know, what works as far as going to what time, how to play off each other and all those kind of things. That was a very different environment to when you usually just have two people hosting and maybe a sport presenter and weather presenter and news presenter. So there are so many skills that come with that. And yes, what you're saying about The Panel, and you look at how many people have transitioned from radio to TV, very few have done it the other way.
Yeah, I guess other names that spring to mind, Chrissy Swan, who had already done radio before she was on Channel 10. Fifi Box, when she was doing weather on Sunrise, she owned that screen. She was so good on the TV.
Yes, she really was. And I think Adam Boland would have had her there forever.
Let's talk Today Show for a second. There are a few big radio names that TV should be considering at the moment to fill Kyle Stefanovic's role, his shoes. Let me give you some names and get your thoughts. First and foremost, all roads lead to Ben Fordham from 2GB. He surely would be their number one pick to replace Carlos.
He would have been. He's done it before. He was part of the show. He knows how the engine works. The thing for him is, especially in these days, being the number one breakfast announcer in Sydney comes with its own financial rewards that I don't think Nine are going to match anymore. So I think to do those hours, Ben has really forged his own radio career. Why would he need to go to what is a lowly second rating show compared to Sunrise? I don't think there's benefit in him for doing lots of benefit for Channel 9 and the Today Show. I don't think the benefit's there for him.
No, I agree, and I think radio's the winner. It's great to have him staying with radio. Now, here's a name that you'll know, and he's just transitioned out of TV, but surely Clint Stanaway, the former Weekend Today host, now on Nova Breakfast Melbourne, would have been a very strong contender to take over from Karl.
Clint's an interesting one. I really like Clint, and it's been interesting watching his career progression from a reporter on 9 News and obviously becoming the weekend presenter on Today. I'm not as convinced about that. I could be convinced because he certainly learnt to break the habits of TV presenters and open himself up. He does a great job with Jason Lauren. And so I would say that should be a consideration. But here's the problem. Unlike Sunrise, Today never has a succession plan. So as a viewer, with Sunrise, whoever they end up putting in, you go, oh, yeah, that makes sense. You know, Sam Armitage, yeah, she used to always fill in. Nat Barr, well, she's always been there, so that makes sense. Matt Shevington, well, he's been filling in for Koshy for the last year, so yeah, that makes sense. With Today, you never know who's going to fill in for Karl. You never know who they've been looking to, and you can be sure whoever they pick is probably not going to be anyone that has been mentioned by anyone.
Yeah, the thing with Clint, why I still think he's a good option, he's obviously he's the boy next door. He's a good-looking rooster. He's very likeable. He's talented. Yep. He knows his sport. I wonder if he hadn't have left a couple of months ago, whether his name would be in the mix now.
I think he left on very good terms with Nine. I don't think Nine were upset with the way he did it. So I would suggest to you that that would not preclude him from being on any internal list. And his name probably is there. I think the biggest issue with the Today Show is its format. It's a stale copy of Sunrise. So realistically, I would start with, what am I trying to do? The thing about Clint, and I love him, please, Clint, don't get angry at me for this, is that he's not going to be someone people go, God, I've got to watch what Clint's doing today on the Today Show. That's what you had with Karl. Now, they only got close once, There was one year where they sort of won, but it was contested. But, Karl was that guy. What's he going to do? Koshy and Mel, what's Koshy going to say? Who's he going to upset? He tells it as it is. That's what kind of character are you getting for the Today Show?
One more radio name that springs to mind is the host of Triple M Brisbane, Dan Anstey, who hosts Today Weekend Weather. Now, he is a really slick radio operator. Not a big news background, but he brings the fun, he brings the entertainment. I mean, a bit like what Shervo does from a different field, left of centre. Shervo's not news. What about Dan Anstey as a potential?
Again, it comes down to those news credentials. Where he probably beats Clint is on the entertainment factor, but Clint would beat him on the news credentials. Could this guy interview the Prime Minister and challenge the Treasurer? That's what you're doing, and pull up the opposition when they're trying to make claims about the government. That's what you've got to do in that position. You've really got to be well versed on the news cycle, what's happening politically. And there's no doubt you can turn it into a fun show, but I would think a role for him, possibly weather, when was the last time we spoke about what Sunrise or Today do with their weather people? Remember when we used to talk constantly about Sam Mack and Grant Danier and the hijinks they'd get up to? There's none of that anymore.
Well, speaking of weather, I ran into Monty the other day at the shops. He was selling his book, Channel 9 Weather, for such a long time, and he was selling his book at Brookside Shopping Centre. I went over and said, mate, I was working up against you on the Big Breakfast back in the 90s. Gee, you used to cane us in the ratings, and we had a great chat, and it was good to see that he's doing well.
He's a great guy, crazy as all, but fantastic guy.
We're talking to Rob McKnight, talking about who could possibly replace Kyle Stefanovic and why TV aren't looking towards radio for their next host. Who's on your list? Do you have a short list of names?
I don't, and this is the problem I face. And I'm surprised you didn't mention Whipper, who has actually sat in the chair, because the one thing I was going to say is it's never a good sign. Unfortunately for him, the Bondi massacre happened when he was sitting in the chair and he didn't end up fronting his first day. And I didn't really get a good look at him, so I can't really comment. But he's certainly an educated man. He's funny. Is he the answer? I don't think he's a Karl or a Koshy, but I imagine he would be on the Today Show shortlist. And you look at the Sydney market. There's really from a radio sense, it's pretty bland at the moment, isn't it? You've got Christian O'Connell coming in and doing some interesting stuff. I know Ricky Lee is doing well, but really there's no radio station with Kyle and Jackie O going. There's nowhere really I think their fans would be gravitating towards. I think we'll see in the next survey that their fans are leaving radio altogether. And I think that's a worrying sign for the industry, but it will obviously, I hope to be proven wrong. We'll see what happens with that. But even along in other markets, I really can't think of that standout talent that could go to the Today Show. And it comes to an age thing too, Liam. What age are they looking for? And it really comes down to the brief. Now, if they came to me and said, Rob, we're not worried about news and politics. We're going young. Who would you think now? Daniel in Brisbane that you mentioned could be an absolute option. If they want to be newsy but not rely on too much of zaniness, then yes, Clint's an option. But there's no standout for me anyway. I think this is a really tough one for 9. I don't know that there's any standout performer that I've seen to take the role in television or radio.
I'm going to put one more name forward. He's actually a TV guy, Chris Kohler, who's the finance guy on Channel 9, who does amazing work on socials. He's got a great podcast. His dad was on the ABC for 40 years. Mm-hmm. He's like a Koshy light, and he's someone I'd put in the mix. Yeah,
I'd put him in the mix too. And yes, some of the stuff he's doing on socials is very interesting. But, he doesn't seem to do that on television. It would be interesting if they let him off the leash a little bit, but he's the finance guy, so I get it. People connected with Koshy as the finance expert. I like Chris. All of these people are great performers, but I'm just trying to think about that X factor that gets you ratings. and and people want to tune in for.
Well, just a reminder for TV that when you first came onto the scene, you went to radio. All your best hosts came from radio. Graham, Burt, Phil Brady. We filled all the spots. Rob McKnight, it's so good to have you on our show, and thank you for joining us on the Quarter Hour podcast today. We really appreciate it, mate.
Anytime, my friend.
Well, let's leave today's show with a clip from the night Aussie radio larrikin Brendan Jonesy Jones showed TV why radio people are just so good when he appeared on the TV quiz show called The Big Music Quiz. And he was asked to play a game called Guess the Tune. You won't believe this. Count how many he got correct in 60 seconds. Spoiler, it's about 14. He taught them a lesson in being quick on his feet, great at music knowledge and pop culture. He had showbiz value and basically how it should be done. We'll catch you next time on the Quarter Hour podcast. Enjoy, Brendan Jonesy Jones.
Are you ready for this?
Yes, sir.
Okay, 60 seconds on the clock. All things rock. Start the songs.
Wolfmother.
Yes. Boom.
Kinks.
Yes. Oh my God. This is
Guns N' Roses.
Yes.
Johnny O'Keefe. Chuck Berry.
Chuck Berry's right. Wowzers.
Thin Lizzy.
Yes. 5 points.
T-Rex.
T-Rex. Goodness, he's annihilating this.
George Thorogood.
It's correct.
In Excess.
Yes, Suicide One. In Excess. Correct answer.
Status Quo.
Status Quo's right. You've got 30 seconds.
Church.
The Church is right. 10 points.
Heart. Barracuda.
Heart is right.
Turn it up. Sweet Home Alabama. Down.
No.
Leonard Skinner.
Yeah, Leonard Skinner is right.
Wild Thing Trogs.
Yes, oh my Lord. 13 points. 10 seconds left.
Sunny Boys.
Sunny Boys
Happy
is right.
Man.
That's 14.
All Right Now. Free.
Free is right. Oh!